everyone. Thank you for joining us to another episode of Ministering Over Fostering. And we are extremely happy and excited to have a wonderful guest with us. I'm not going to introduce him because I want him to tell us all about him and share with you who he is and why he's here. So Jacob, go ahead and tell us about yourself, your career, why you're here today.
Absolutely. So my name is Jacob Valdellon. I'm a 27-year-old Filipino American entrepreneur. I grew up here in Southern California. I was born here actually. And my parents are first generation born here. So my grandparents came from the Philippines. They came here, and then I was able to be born and raised out here in a city called Marietta. And then I moved to a city called Chino Hills. And now I really live in the Inland Empire, for those of you guys that are familiar with the Inland Empire. My journey from growing up as a child, I always knew that I had something inside of me. Like, it's crazy that I knew that there was something inside of me as a young boy, that I always played sports growing up, and I did very well in school from elementary, middle school, high school. So I knew that God had a huge plan for my life. I just wasn't sure what it was, right? My biggest dream growing up was, I thought I wanted to become a Major League Baseball player. Like that was it for me. That's the end all be all. But my life took a big U-turn because I actually got cut from my high school baseball team my junior year, right? And I wasn't qualified to play high school baseball or college baseball or even major leagues, right? But God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. And for those of that you are listening right now, there's a lot of you that are called to do something big with your life. You don't know it yet. You're not sure where God's going to lead you or guide you. But all I know is that if you listen to His voice and you surround yourself with people that align with your values and you align with your faith, God's going to show you a grand vision for your life. So He painted a vision for me. He said, hey, look, you're not going to go to college. You're going to drop out of college your freshman year. And you're going to do this thing called entrepreneurship. So any of you kids out there that don't even know what that is, it's becoming a business owner, entrepreneur, becoming someone to be able to build a business. And at 19 years old, I'm like, I don't even know what that even looks like, what that sounds like, but I knew I wanted to pursue that. So at 19 years old, I pursued real estate. And then from the age 19 to about 23, I was the failing entrepreneur, fake it till you make it, fall forward, all of those things. And until I worked on myself. So if you want to take notes, it's definitely read books, listen to podcasts, consume content that expands your mind, expands your thinking, because you can't get to the next level with the same thinking that you're at. So continue to work on your mind, work on your mindset, network with people, get curious, learn to ask good questions, because the quality of your questions is the quality of your life. So I was fail forward, and opportunity met preparation when I found a mentor in 2020, so around COVID time. But let me digress a little bit. In 2018, I went to an event that changed my life. I went to an event where I saw these guys who were being awarded as the top producers in real estate. And I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to be a top producing real estate agent. Sure enough, 2 years later, divine timing happens, and I end up seeing this guy on social media, followed him, text message. He actually drove right by me on the freeway, and I sent him a message. And that one message changed the entire trajectory of my life. One conversation on Instagram led to a mentorship, led to so much more, right? And I'll get into that story later on, but that's kind of how I grew up, kind of that vision I had for my life, and not knowing what I wanted to do. It's okay, because sometimes your visions can evolve, they can mature, and they can change. And that's okay.
Yeah, I absolutely love what you're discussing, because we actually were working with one of our youth yesterday. This is one of the youth that is pretty consistent in our office and just comes to have coffee and relax with us. And we were just talking to this youth about how sometimes there are particular doors that we're chasing after to be opened, and we keep hitting these barriers, and then eventually they close. And the reason why they close is because there's another door that's going to open for us that we couldn't even imagine. And I think Lakeisha and I are a testament to that, where maybe 3 years ago, I would have been laughing if I thought I was going to be the founder and executive director of a nonprofit organization. I would have been like, what is that? And how do I get there? Right?
Absolutely.
And so I love that you're sharing this part of the story, because it's so true. Sometimes we're so adamant, fixated on a particular goal, and really the doors for us that are believers, right? The doors that God has for us sometimes are so much better than what we were able to imagine. And we really just have to give in to a door that's closing that was just not for us. And it's accepting that.
Ari, oh my gosh, my heart right now. You already know, like, you said so many things. I felt myself already tearing up a little bit because there's so many youth out there that have no clue what they want to do. They think by a certain time period, they should have it all together. And a lot of things, like they're seeing people on social media posting all these great things. And if they feel like they don't have it together, they feel hopeless. They feel like they don't have a purpose. So there was one thing that stood out to me is the term fake it till you make it.
Oh, yeah.
And I hate that term. I really do, because I just feel like there's so many people out there faking it until they make it and may not ever make it, but are faking it. And that is just setting the wrong tone for these kids. I do love the fact that you had a mentor. And I think that everybody should have a mentor, no matter how old they are, because that's also setting a tone for your community. When you're around positive people, it's going to make you want to succeed even more. So I love this. You're Myra.
Well, Jacob, I know you shared some of the challenges already in the little snippet that you gave us, but is there a particular challenge that you faced that really has stood out to you? And how did you overcome that challenge? And this could be in any way, spiritual, career-wise, individual, whatever you can share with us.
I have two I'll get into, but before I get into that, I want to address the fake it till you make it and the whole perception of what success looks like for a youth, right? Me growing up in when I graduated high school in 2014 on social media, it was all about selling courses, driving a Lamborghini, traveling the world. That was all Fugazi, right? So what I've learned recently is that we think that there's a rainbow that we have to travel across, and at the end of it, there's a pot of gold that we're all trying to achieve. What we don't realize is that the pot of gold is the rainbow, and the journey is where the joy and the peace and fulfillment actually are. We're chasing a destination that actually isn't what we're going, because life isn't a destination, life is a full journey, right? So I had to overcome two things recently. One of them, I'll talk about the more recent one, and I'll talk about what I overcame in the past. So the more recent one is stop trying to be somebody to fit the frame or the mold of what people think you should be. Because it's so easy to be a people pleaser nowadays. It's so easy to get validation and trying to receive love from people because of the way you dress or the way you show up or the programming you have been built with growing up of how to even receive love. Like for me, whenever I would achieve or go get a home run in sports or get a good grade, I would then receive love. So the way I thought that to receive love, you had to go and only achieve. So my entire life is I attach my identity to making money or building a business or becoming the guy, right? And a lot of that imposter syndrome kept on creeping in because it was empty. It was fleeting. That feeling was so fleeting. Trying to please people around me to find validation from everyone around me. So that right there, for any of those that guys are listening, follow your heart and live your authentic version of you, because you're gonna start to be polarizing. So you're gonna attract all the people that are for you, and you're gonna start to literally repel everyone that's not for you, right? There's two things you need to do to be congruent in life. Number one, it's have your values and your actions. What happened was I had all the people doing all the right things, all the making money and all that, but their values weren't aligned. So it's easier to teach someone how to make money than teaching them how to be a good person. So values are so huge. I want to share that with people. So that's one thing I'm to this day working on. We're learning, reversing being a people pleaser, right? And I'm people say you're a recovering alcoholic. Well, I'm a recovering people pleaser. I always wanted to make everyone around me happier, and I always wanted to put everyone in front of before me. So that was one thing I had to overcome, and I'm still in that pursuit of learning. Another thing that I overcame was during COVID in 2020, that's when I was faking it till I made it. I was super depressed and I was living in that imposter syndrome because I had the identity of I should have already been a six-figure earner. I should have already had a business. I should have already been in my 20s and making it and traveling the world. That's not reality, right? So the blueprint of my life didn't match the reality, the dream I had for it. The current reality didn't match the blueprint of what I wanted for my life. So in 2020, March happened when the world shut down. And then I thought it was going to be a 2-week vacation. Like, okay, COVID's going to reopen up. That didn't happen. Obviously, we all kind of know what happened from there. So March, April, and May, gyms were closed, barbers were closed. I didn't know, like, I looked like a mess. My body started to like shift. I didn't like who I was. And I fell into a deep, dark cycle of depression. It was just like, there's really no way looking, like there's no bright future. You know, there's no compelling future to look forward to. So I was really, I got very suicidal thoughts, suicidal like ideologies of like what I wanted to do and how I wanted to end my life. It was really dark. And then I was like, this can't be it. There's no way that this is how my story ends, right? So on May 26th, I did something called 75 Hard. It's a mental toughness program by Andy Frisella. And that was like the launch from like the darkest days of my life. That was like the bounce off the ground from ground zero. And I never looked back since. And part of that too, being transparent with you guys, is that I feel like I'm still running away from my past because of how much pain I went through, right? So I never want to experience that pain again. And the quality of my life right now is a lot to do with I'm running away from pain. So we're either running towards pleasure or running away from pain. Either way, that's kind of where we're heading. So I went from suicidal to 8 months later, clearing over 6 figures of income through real estate, right? So it was a journey to say the least, but the person I became, it's not the amount of money you make, or it really doesn't matter. It's the person you become along the way. And then leading into a faith question, I know that I'm going to kind of tie this in. I didn't have faith grounded in me on my way up. I had faith while I was down, but on the way up, I almost forgot to take God with me on the climb up. So when your income supersedes your identity and they don't align, well, then you're going to forget about God, and you're going to forget to stay grounded, and pride comes right before the fall, right? And so climb. I look at me. And then everything came smashing down. So I had to reinvent myself and realign myself with a bigger mission, because once you've cleared a certain amount of money, you realize like there needs to be a big purpose behind why you're doing it. Otherwise, it's all gonna be stripped away for you. And as fast as you make it, as fast as it goes away. So the longer it takes for you to get to what you call success, the more you're gonna appreciate it when you do hit that level.
I think you're speaking to us right now, and I don't think we were expecting this at all. But, you know, Lakeisha and I have been in a season of wait as we've been waiting for our contracts to begin with the counties. And we finally got an approval from one of the counties, and we're going to be moving forward with licensing very soon. And so during this time, her and I have a lot of heart-to-heart conversations, because not only are we partners in this venture together, but we've now become, sisters, we've become best friends, we've become partners in life, because we share everything with each other in order to make this business flourish. It's such a beautiful relationship that we've been able to cultivate together. And we've had this discussion before where, we've seen the numbers. We know what some of these executive directors are able to make through nonprofits, and we're not there yet, and that's okay. And we've had to really give ourselves the permission to enjoy this process that we're in. And to a certain extent, I think, again, Lakeisha and I are believers, and so we truly believe that God has been in control of this from the moment that we decided to dedicate this mission to Him. But we've been really in this process of being humbled throughout. And I'm very grateful for that, because I've had this discussion so much, and I've told Lakeisha, the moment that we reach that number that we're potentially going to be able to make, I want to remember how hard it was, and the journey that the Lord took us through to get us to that number, so that we don't forget who we are in the process. Because I don't want to forget why we started this in the beginning once we see those numbers coming in to the potential that they can be. So I think you're speaking to me personally with what you're saying, because I have to keep that in mind. God has to go with me. I can't leave Him behind.
Absolutely.
To piggyback on that, and I'll share something that was thrown out there probably less than a year ago. We came from an agency. We were used to getting those regular paychecks, 9 to 5. And when I think back at certain time periods, even though I was doing what I loved to do, I did hit certain stages where I was personally depressed. Like, I went through episodes of anxiety where my husband had to come and intervene And I just think like we've had this agency, we started it since 2021. And if we can be completely honest, because it's been thrown out there already, me and Myra have not received one penny. We've been doing this without any income in our pockets. And
Wow.
I honestly can tell you, I've been the happiest that I've ever been just working directly and sharing God's love to other people. And so when you said some of those bits and pieces from your story, that really stuck with me, because it's true. We can't leave God out of it. And I think oftentimes that's when we seek Him, is when we're at our lowest. And then when we start to build, we're like, okay, God, you can kind of just stay over on the sidelines. Like, I don't need you anymore. We're good, you know? But no, He will bring you back down to say, yes, no, you do need me. And to remember, this is what I gave you. How are you going to glorify me in this process? So thanks for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Well, Jacob, for those who don't know you, Lakeisha and I have gotten to know you very well through social media. That's one of the beauties of social media. And you probably, the first question, is there something you cannot do? Because we see you working out, you're a motivator, you're an encourager, you're working, and you're doing all of these things together, and you do it so well. And so how do you balance all of that without feeling overwhelmed?
Well, honesty, here's the honesty part. So as much as that's why I do and I don't love social media, because it looks from the greatest point of view on the outside looking in, like everything's perfect, right? It looks so good. So yeah, of course, I do all those things you did mention. But the balancing act, if I want to be honest with you, because I don't want to paint a picture or a pipe dream for people to realize like, oh my gosh, there's just nothing, there's no problems in that guy's life. That's far from the truth. So this is where you guys can relate, like, okay, well, as good as it looks on the outside, I'm gonna give you I'll give you a look on the inside. So I wake up every day with battling uncertainty, anxiety, fear, worry, not knowing what my next move or my next step's gonna be. Am I even doing what God wants for my life? Like that all goes through my head every single day. And all I know is that I'm just putting my best foot forward and just doing the most that I can with intention, because I do have a big vision for my life and I know that I'm called to serve. But I would be lying to you, letting you know that this is the easiest balancing act ever. So it's not easy, but the way I've been able to really make this happen for myself is I lean on my faith, right? So for those of you that don't even have a relationship with faith, or those that do, I'm going to give it to you the way I know how I received God in my life and kind of where I've been tested. So I will move where I feel called to, and if there's peace in that decision. So when God's telling me something, I'll ask Him, like, is this something that I should be doing? And then in my heart knows before my mind does. My mind will overthink all day, but if there's peace within my heart, and I know that's what God wants for me, I will take the leap. I've taken a lot of leaps recently and different career paths I've changed and things I've done because I just have faith that that's what God wants for my life. And I've released myself from the dollar signs and the money. So this balancing act that you see of being a motivator, going to the gym and doing all that, that's all become part of my identity of how I want to show up and serve the people around me, to be the example for what people think is possible in their life, where you can't have it all. But with that territory, if it was that easy, everyone would do it. So to have a fit body, to have money in your bank accounts, and be able to drive a decent car, to be able to live on your own, to be able to inspire other people, it's all possible. But it's only possible if you're willing to do the work on yourself, right? So you have to be willing to know that if you're going to go through this journey to become, someone that's in my space, that, I'm putting myself, like, compared to who I'm supposed to be, I'm not even there yet. But if you want to even step into a space where I'm at right now, just know that there's going to be a lot of work involved, and you're going to be very uncertain, and you're going to be battling with a lot of anxiety. So I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, it's very real, right? Because we do go based off of what we see on social media, but in order to have that, it's very intentional. Like right now I'm juggling 2 jobs and trying to be a wife and do all of these other things. And so it is so intentional, and it doesn't mean you don't get tired. It doesn't mean you don't feel sometimes discouraged, but you have to be intentional about all of the pieces that make us who we are. And I guess with that, we can lead into this next question, because you've been alluding a lot to faith and talking about your journey with faith and your connection to God. And in the industry that you're in, I can imagine it's not so easy to believe in God and make the big bucks and do all of the things. And so how have you been able to maintain your faith, and even more so proclaim your faith so openly in the industry that you're in?
Yes. So the industry that I'm in currently, I was in real estate for the last 2 years, from 2020 to 2022. And then in 2022, I transitioned into life insurance, financial services, retirement planning, money management, right? So then I did that. And then recently in December of 2022 into the beginning of this year, I actually pivoted. I still have relationships with the financial services company, but I pivoted into the funeral insurance sales. So I help pre-arrange and pre-plan funerals for veteran families, which is, I didn't know that existed. It's a very lucrative industry. It's almost like there's no competition there. So people know that what I do, and if they want to ask any questions or reach out to me in my Instagram to let me know what I do, feel free to do that. So being able to be outwardly vocal about my faith on social media, it wasn't comfortable initially, because most people don't do it, let alone they're afraid to get slammed or slandered because of your beliefs. But I know that when God calls my number and I'm forced to answer it, and I can't keep on forwarding his calls, eventually he's gonna call us, right? I don't want to be denied by him. So I can't deny him while I'm still here. So I need to make sure that people know what I believe in, people learn about what I believe in, because I want them to experience what I've experienced with faith and with how God loves me and how he's shown up for me in my life. Because if he could do that for me, he could do that for all of us. And honestly, God's love is the most unconditional, most warm. It's the most beautiful thing you're ever going to experience when you're in contact with God's love and the Holy Spirit. And getting to that point, it's learning about the faith, first of all, building a relationship with God, and constantly practicing and running towards that. Am I perfect? Am I a saint? Have I made mistakes? Absolutely. But one thing I could give myself credit for is that when I do fall, I am so quick to run back to my God and just say, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. I have no intention to hurt you or make you mad. I'm a flawed human being, and I love you, and I'm sorry. And I carry him with me wherever I go. So his word is everything, right? If you study the Bible, study Christ, study our Lord Jesus, right? That right there, you'll never go wrong, because man's going to fail you. Family's going to fail. Everything in this world will fail you, but he will never fail you. And when you believe that and you know that in your heart to be true, you can walk through life with that confidence, right? You can't have faith and fear at the same time. You can't have grace and anxiety at the same time. It's not possible. So it's a constant, like you said, it's a constant battle between, oh my gosh, I'm sinking. Oh my gosh, God's got me. It's like you're walking off of the edge of a cliff, but the bridge is invisible. But God doesn't tell you that. You're just like, well, I'm about to walk off the edge. And that's kind of the relationship I've had with faith.
I love that illusion, because, many times Akeisha and I are like, we feel like we're going to sink. And then he says, no, you're not. Grabs us right back up. So it's, and faith it works that way. It works in such a mysterious way, right? Where you come in and you say, okay, this is what you said. When Akeisha and I took this leap of faith back in 2021, I remember clearly that day that I called Akeisha and I said, okay, I'm jumping. And a week later, she's like, I'm jumping too. And I'm like, let's do it. Let's see where this goes. And I think we've navigated this business from day one, just saying, Lord, you're in control. And this is our way of ministering. We do have to be very mindful of where we are. We cannot share our faith as openly, but we have had youth who want to discuss it and we're open to it. And those that don't, that's okay. But we have been able to say, this is the way we're going to minister. This is why ministering over fostering. We're not just fostering children, we're ministering to them by our love for them, by showing them all of these things that we can do for them, that we know ultimately the Lord does for us, right? And it's a reflection of who He is in everything we do, the way we run the business, the ethics, the foundations, all of that. And so faith is just a beautiful thing.
Even with that, to present like our story, and knowing that God has so much to do with it, and to leave that out, it's almost impossible to do.
Oh yeah.
Right? And you brought up the idea of peace. Like if it's, from Him, it will be a peaceful situation. Not saying you won't go through trials still, but you'll be at peace. And I feel like Myra and myself can relate to that, because there's been so many decisions. I mean, even down to picking the actual location for our agency, and just having complete peace with the whole situation. I think that sums up what your relationship with God really is.
Yeah.
That actually moves us into this next question that we have for you, Jacob, because we're so thankful that you're such an open book for us. We want to take advantage of you.
All of it.
But with this world being so scary, and you've talked about anxiety, talked about depression, even suicidality. I've been through depression myself. My husband and I have been struggling to have babies for, we're going on now 8 years that we've been trying to have babies. And 3 years ago, we actually miscarried our one and only pregnancy of twins. And I went through depression.
Wow.
Really, really bad. And so this is real. We struggle through these things, and this world is scary and hard and all of that. But one of the things that has attracted Lakeisha and I to you and the content that you provide is that you have such a positive outlook in life. And I think it's hard to have a positive outlook in life if you have not been through some of the hardships, right? Because through those hardships, you do find light, and that's where God comes in. So how is it that you keep this positive outlook on life, even with all of this, and use that to encourage and motivate others through your social media and the life that you live?
Well, I would say that your extremity, how far you push yourself, stretches your capacity. So what I thought before was dark, it no longer is dark to me. So I'm always constantly evolving what I believe my darkness is, right? I have seasons of it. So one thing too is that you realize that you're going into a dark season, you're getting out of one, or you're in one right now. So you're never gonna not have another one. So just know that if you're in one, there's a way out. And if you're on your way out of it, and you haven't been in one, one's coming. So you have to realize it's just a cycle of it. How do you stay positive in that though? It's just learning how to be the awareness of your thoughts. You're not your thoughts, having the awareness of your thoughts. If a thought doesn't serve you, just know that what meaning do I need to attach to what's going on in my life that can serve me, right? And going back, I'll always bring back to faith, because that's also what keeps us grounded, knowing that that's there. Just know that you're born to do something great with your life, right? I'm speaking to everyone that's going to watch this. There's something inside of you that's calling you to do more, right? And if you think that there's this whole self-pity party that's where you're sitting at, you were born more than that. There's a huge vision. If you just think about what God intended for your life's mission and purpose, there's so much more in you. You just have to let yourself experience that and let yourself step into that. We are our worst critic. If people heard what we say to ourselves in our head every day, they would throw us in jail, because that's how brutal we are in ourselves. So it's knowing that this life can be so amazing with the intentionality behind serving others and using your gifts. People, I've once heard that your gifts are the things that come to you the easiest and have the least resistance, and you use those in the service of others, right? And if you could step into your gifts and lead a life of abundance, That's where the bliss, joy, peace, and happiness can come. And the darkness really is hard. It's hard to be dark in that mode. So just surrounding yourself with quality people. And honestly, if your environment is toxic, that's probably half the reason why you're not living the life you so desire. Because half of this battle is mental, right, in the head, and the other half is environmental, where you're at, the location of it. So if I could give you one piece of advice is strengthen the mind, do the hard things first, and then change your environment, because that's what's going to get you out, and it's going to bring light into your life.
Very powerful. I was listening to something the other day that said that when you are in some of those darkest moments, the best thing you can do is show kindness to others, because when you show kindness to others, it's almost like you're kind of also reaping that for yourself. And so I think that's just, again, being so intentional, right? The environment, if you are in a negative environment, it's hard to not think that way. It's hard to not be sucked into those types of situations. So absolutely right. And I guess this kind of leads us into our final question that we have for you, Jacob. And you've given our listeners so much advice already on different aspects, but we do serve a lot of youth. We're talking about 18 and older. They're either in extended foster care, have already aged out of foster care. Some of them are starting life. They're making decisions. They're starting to shed old patterns of behavior, and they're starting to, shape new patterns of behavior. And they're just getting their life together, exploring this new level of independence. I'm out of the system maybe, or getting prepared to be out of the system that has defined me for so long. I've gone through trauma. I've experienced all kinds of hardship, disillusion, disappointment, et cetera, et cetera. And I think you're just such a beautiful reflection of an overcomer and someone who's been through a lot of challenges. So what's some advice or some of those words that you can give to our youth that are listening to you today?
Yeah, so if you're going through a dark season and you're trying to figure out where your identity's at, don't be so quick to try and get out of it, right? Where you're at right now, there's so many gifts if you look around of all the lessons around you. So on your way down, if you're in a dark season, be patient and be still there, because there's so much richness while you're down there that once you're on your way back up to figure out who you are and why you're doing what you're doing, that's going to be the thing that's going to unlock you. So it does take time to figure that out though. So it's day by day. And just know that you have a whole lifetime ahead of you. I'm still in my 20s. I feel like sometimes I think my life's over at 27. I'm like, oh my God, that's all, like, that's it. No, I have a whole entire life ahead of me with all the lessons I've learned, with all the people I've already met. So when you're in this transition of trying to figure out who you are, it's okay to be a hypocrite sometimes. It's okay to be like, well, maybe I don't like the color yellow, or maybe I don't want to do that for my life, or maybe I don't want to be a nurse. And you could just stop and just change directions, because ultimately that's what you want. And like I told you earlier in the call, is that I'm still overcoming what people want for me, because I've built so much value in myself that people want me to go here, go there, go here, go there. And I've stretched myself so thin by always saying yes to the things that don't serve me. I'm in a process now winding that all back. So if you're in that next season of your life, you just graduated high school, you're coming out of the system, or you're trying to figure out, like, how can I even learn how to feel loved, right? Ultimately, everyone right now that's going through this and that's watching this call, they're wearing a sign around their neck saying, just please listen to me. I want to be visible. Please love me. Everyone's wearing that right now. And people are so worried about what other people think of them that people don't realize everyone's wearing that sign around their neck. So what I could suggest to you, what you guys said also, is just be light, be love, be compassion. You can't fill someone's cup if yours is empty. So constantly learn how to love yourself, spend time with yourself, ask yourself deep questions. And along that journey, you're going to figure out who you are and be happy about who that is, because that's ultimately what your journey of life is going to be. So when you look back at these last 80 years, you're going to be like, I did it. I did it on my terms. I made it happen. And I voted for myself. And it's going to be the wildest ride. It's going to be the one life you have. And never settle. Ever, 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 never settle. Go after it all, because God wants you to achieve all your dreams and desires in your heart, as so long as that He's the center of your life.
I think it's exactly what we need to hear right now, that, you know, we all go through things, and sometimes we're trying to navigate with things. I heard the other day, you never know what the person next to you is dealing with unless you ask, right?
Yep.
And so taking a moment to just sit there and understand that you're not the only person in the world that's suffering, but you're gonna be okay.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. Lakeisha, I don't know if you have any final thoughts.
Yeah, just to piggyback on the people pleasing, I feel like, you know, in today's society, we're just all victims to being a people pleaser. We want to make sure that everybody is happy around us, or we're doing, quote unquote, like the right thing. So thank you for just explaining that. And I mean, I can say I'm in my early 40s and I just started to kind of get out of that. Not fully out of it, but I would say like 85%, where I'm like, nope, I don't have to apologize. Like, this is my decision and it's okay. So thank you for touching base on that.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Jacob. Again, we just admire you so much as a human being. We absolutely love everything you do and say, and we're so grateful for you coming in here today to share so much of your wisdom. I mean, you're so young. You're only 27 years old and you have so much life experience and you've lived so much, that is just such a beautiful opportunity for our youth who are kind of coming right behind you in their age to say, I can do this and I'm going to be okay. Whatever decision I make, I'm going to be okay. So thank you so much for your time. We truly appreciate you. And we want to announce that you are going to be joining us for a workshop in April. Yes. And so now that our youth have heard you, they've seen you, they see your energy, they're going to know who to come and expect. And so we can't wait to share more information on that soon. But thank you one more time for everything. Go ahead, Lakeisha.
And Myra, I was going to say, just to let you know too, you did mention, you know, what's on social media, you're just trying to put it out there. But I want you to know personally that my son, a teenager, he met you in person one time, and for a brief moment, but just that little brief moment that you had with him, you inspired him. So the Lord is using you in the right way. And I just want you to know that.
That's beautiful. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right, Jacob. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone who joined us. If you have any questions, we'll be linking all of his information. So if there's something that you need, a service that he can provide. And we look forward to seeing you at the next episode of Ministering Over Fostering. Bye.
Bye.